and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Titanic. So ever since I was like 11 years old, I've always been really interested in the idea and like how the Titanic actually sunk and what actually happened. And the Academy Award-winning film is my favorite movie, and obviously I love Jack and Rose's love story, but I was kind of more interested in what actually happened. And I often think about like what would you do if you were trapped in a ship that was sinking and there was a strong chance that you wouldn't make it out alive. I don't know, I just think it's like insane to think about. So I'm going to discuss the birth of the Titanic, the disaster, and the aftermath. And as most of us already know, Titanic hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic during its voyage from Southampton, England to New York City, and it sank like around 3 hours later. And it left only 700 people alive, and there were 2,228 people on the ship, which shows that most people, the majority of them, did die. The structure of the ship was laid at shipbuilder Harland and Wolff's Belfast, Ireland yard on March 31st, 1909, and the White Star Line, which was the commissioner of the ship, had a long-standing relationship with Harland and Wolff, and they received something called carte blanche, which meant that they could do whatever they want and take whatever means necessary in order to make it the best ship possible. It was designed by managing director Thomas Andrews. Anyone's ever seen the movie, that's obviously Mr. Andrews, and he was going to make it the largest and most elegant and luxurious steamship. Thousands were involved in the construction. Obviously it was huge. It was made of many steel plates. Some were as tall as 6 feet. They were 30 feet wide and over 1 inch thick, and there were 3 million rivets used just to hold the whole thing together. The ship was officially launched on water on Belfast River on May 31st, 1911, but they realized that all the work wasn't done yet, and so it had to be worked on for the following year too. And at 882 feet in length, 170 feet high from the keel to the smokestack, and 92 feet at its widest point, it crushed all other competition of ships. Like, it was the biggest of them all. And it weighed 46,000 pounds. It had 10 different decks and 4 large funnels and 3 engines. And it required a large crew to attend to its 29 boilers and 162 furnaces, which is a ton. It earned the unsinkable reputation, which obviously isn't true, but because it was divided into 16 watertight compartments, and they were each connected by heavy doors. It was believed that even if 4 of them filled up, it would still float, so they thought that there was no possible way that it could ever sink. And the voyage was originally set for March 1912, but unfortunately in September of 1911, its sister ship, known as the Olympic, it got damaged in a collision, and the workers that were working on the Titanic were transferred to help fix up the Olympic, so obviously it put a delay on getting it on the water. So the ship was eventually stocked in Southampton, England, where crew members came aboard, and prep was made there for the voyage that would officially be made on April 10th, 1912. So Titanic moved through the North Atlantic on the night of April 14th, 1912, and just a few short hours later is when it sank. At 11:40 p.m., crewman Frederick Fleet was in the crow's nest on lockout duty, and that's when he first spotted the iceberg. Quartermaster Robert Hitchens attempted to steer it out of harm, but it scraped past, and there were small punctures left below the waterline. And it's actually, like, they've done research that if they would have just went straight through the iceberg instead of trying to steer it aside, there would have been less damage, or it wouldn't have sank as fast, or maybe not even sank at all. But obviously they were like in a hurry and were trying to get out of it, so they went to the side, which didn't work out. Passengers on the ship said that it was similar to going over 1,000 marbles, the feeling of when it hit it. Everything was just so shaken up. And water rushed in at an estimate of 7 tons per second, which is super fast. And Captain Smith ordered lifeboats at midnight and sent out the first SOS message at 12:15, which is around an hour after the ship actually hit the iceberg. And the Carpathia, which was a ship traveling from the New York to the Mediterranean, was the first ship to pick up the distress signal. But unfortunately, like with times back then, they couldn't travel as fast, or they couldn't pick things up as quickly, so meaning it would take more time to like rescue everyone that was about to die. And the first lifeboat wasn't sent out until 12:45, and by that time, the ship had already been flooded with approximately 25,000 gallons of water, and the bow had already begun to sink, so they were pretty much doomed. As we all know as well, there were an insufficient number of lifeboats. The last lifeboat left at 2:05 in the morning, and there were still 1,500 people stranded on the ship, which ended up quickly sinking anyway. From the time the ship hit the iceberg to the time it sank was only 2 hours and 40 minutes, and by the time most people got in the water, the temperature of the Atlantic was only 28 degrees, meaning that most people ended up dying of hypothermia anyway, because it was freezing. At 4 a.m., the Carpathia finally arrived which was almost 5 hours after they had first heard about it. So it rescued 705 survivors from the lifeboats over that night, which wasn't enough. And on April 15th, which was the immediate aftermath of the sinking, there were conflicting news reports about what had actually happened because the Carpathia was still out of radio range to New York, because like I said before, they didn't have as great of technology as we do today. So newspapers initially reported that it struck an iceberg and the majority of passengers survived, which obviously isn't true. But the full story came out, which was one of history's biggest tragedies, and it stunned the world. The Carpathia arrived in the New York harbor in the rain around April 18th, and the following day the U.S. government launched an investigation into the disaster. There was a 6-week inquiry in New York and Washington, and there were over 80 witnesses there. Most of them were passengers. And the American investigation that concluded while complacency and errors in judgment by the Titanic captain and crew might have contributed to the disaster, no one was criminally negligent. And this resulted in Smith calling new regulations to prevent future maritime tragedies, including making sure ships have enough lifeboats, making sure there's a 24-hour radio watch, and the creation of an international ice patrol to issue iceberg warnings in the North Atlantic shipping lanes. So in conclusion, it was obviously a tragedy that will never be forgotten. The building took over 3 years, and in just 3 short hours it was completely destroyed. But fortunately, as tragic as it was, it did influence us strongly today to make sure that nothing like this would ever occur again.